Hey, gang, welcome back to the Edge interview series. We're glad to have you on this. If it's your first time, welcome to what we like to think is an area of success, where we like to think that we have something that we have to offer when it comes to thinking, when it comes to understanding. And I tell you what, if you've been on this before, you know that this is something. I think we're getting a little bit of feedback from somebody here. So I'm going to do my best to try and figure that out, because one of the things that you have to understand is that we're not one of those people that it's like watching a TV show. There's some feedback. Sometimes you hear a dog barking. Sometimes you hear different things, because we know it has nothing to do with that. We know it has everything to do with success. It has everything to do with the heartbeat. So when it comes to thinking, if you've been on our Edge series before, you've noticed that we've had different people, from Marine snipers to Air Force pilots and fighter pilots, to people that have been through some tough things like leukemia, to individuals like a sheriff that has talked about bullying and what happens. We've had individuals that have talked about Facebook. And our whole goal is to teach everybody out there that right now is the perfect time to lead. Whether you're 18 or 80, we know that right now is the perfect time to lead. And no matter what happens, whether you think you're a leader or not, you're going to be leading anyway. So the best we can do right now is give you a thought. All right, down at the bottom of your screen, if you're looking at this screen right now and you know how to use that little cursor, or you're on your phone, you have a little thing that's called question and answer, or the other one is chat. The big thing that you can do with each one of those is then type in some questions. We got a great individual here, somebody I've known for several years. He's traveled the world, and we're going to talk a little bit about traveling. But if you have questions for him, make sure that you put them down in the question and answer. All right, make sure it comes up to a point that you get it. And it does not matter the question, but you got to help me. You better be listening. You got to help me. All right. For the last 15, 20 minutes of the interview, I want to machine gun this guy. He thinks he's so good at dodging questions, but we are going to take it to him. We are going to allow him to have as many tough questions as you can bring to the table. All right, whatever it may be. If something comes up while he's talking, you're like, I'm not really sure what he said, then type it in so that I have some ammunition to go right back into him and machine gun, so that we can all learn. So today's speaker, today's interviewee is Mr. Holger Spiewak. All right, Mr. Holger Spiewak is a great man. He is a husband. He has a father of 7 children. So boys and girls out there, you're like, man, my brother, my sister, think of having 7 or 6 different siblings. And this man knows how to manage that. Plus, a huge speaker. He speaks all over the world. All right, his heart is in the game, in whatever game he is. In this time of the interview, you will see that Holger is into this so much that he's going to share his wisdom. And he has a special story. The cool thing about it is this is his story, and we get a chance to bring it to him. So without any further ado, Mr. Holger Spiewak, hey, it's great to have you on this.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Excited.
Oh, man, I appreciate that you could take the time. In Michigan, it's beautiful. I'm not sure where you guys are listening to this from, but it is beautiful here.
It's hot, which is
hot.
awesome.
Yeah, it's hot. All right, Mr. Spiewak, would you rather me call you Mr. Spiewak, Mr. Holger? How would you like me to address you?
Well, I think we've always on a first name basis, so I think Holger is fine. So.
All right. Well, boys and girls out there, I don't expect you to say, hey, Mr. Holger, or you can use a Mr., because he's definitely a respected individual in my heart. That's why I ask those questions. That's something that you should always do, that is you should always ask the questions so that you can bring that to him. So coming back at this. All right. Holger, tell us a little bit about where you're from, how you grew up. All right.
Okay. So I'm from Germany. I was born in Hamburg, which is the second biggest city in Germany. And I tell people in America all the time that I'm a real hamburger, because people in Germany are from Hamburg. I'm called hamburger. So I don't know if the two are connected with you guys. The meeting is over here of Hamburg. But anyway, so I was born there in 1967. And I remember when I was born, grew up in Germany, the wall, the dividing wall between East and West Germany was a very established institution. And I always thought it's going to be there forever. Well, many of you guys probably don't even know the wall anymore, but it was the dividing line, a very highly defended line from people to keep people from fleeing Stalinistic or socialistic East Germany. So I was fortunate enough to be born in the western part, the much more free part. And, you know, very much like America, I think freedom of speech, good economy, and really not any issues with hunger or stuff like that. How about, I think not as much technology, maybe as advanced as the United States. I went to high school. My two favorite subjects were my favorite subject was physics. And my dad was a teacher. He taught math and physics at a German gymnasium, which has nothing to do with the American gymnasium. The gymnasium in Germany is just the highest level of high school. And my two main subjects were math and physics. I ended up going into university in Germany to become a teacher, just like my dad. And I graduated in 1993. Now, in the meantime, in 1983, we had moved from Hamburg, so big city, to the country. In 1974, my parents had bought a farmhouse in the country that we had basically visited every weekend for the next 8 years or 7 years. And then when the gas crisis came in the late 1970s, 1980s, we decided we're going to move to the country and give up our residence in Hamburg, which I loved it. It was great living in the country, having freedom of drive a car around and 12 people. That was pretty cool, and tractors and that kind of stuff, and mopeds. But in 1983, about 5 miles away from where I lived, and they had an open day in 1993 when they finished the place. And I remember my family went to this open day that they had, and that was the first time in my life I had a hamburger. I was 16 years old, a real hamburger. And we met a guy there. His name was Dan Quinn. He was a second lieutenant in the Air Force. I just graduated from Texas A&M, and Germany was his first assignment out of college. And my parents kind of adopted the guy. He came over to our house all the time. And through him, we met another guy who was a second lieutenant in the Army. And that gentleman, Greg, is the gentleman that my oldest sister ended up marrying. So they got married in 1986 and then moved to the States. And so then, let me see here. So 1986, I graduated from high school, was in the German Air Force for 2 years, and then went to university for 5 years, like I said, to get a good teaching degree. And when I was close to graduation, I decided that I wanted to go to the States a little longer than a couple of weeks because I'd visited several times. And so I looked into these exchange programs that I heard people that are available, and my German university had an exchange program with Purdue in Indiana. And so I applied and was accepted. And so originally my goal was to come here for 2 years and go back to Germany, but got a different plan. So 20-some years later, I'm still here.
So Holger, let me ask you this. So you said some pretty good things that a lot of people take for granted. You said the first time you ever had a hamburger from a restaurant was when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, I was actually at this Air Force base. You know, they had like a barbecue there, whatever. They were passing out free hamburgers, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" You know, like a beef patty with a bun and everything. And I tried it. It was pretty good. I liked it. If it made any sense.
So let me ask you this. Maybe it's comical. I don't know. So you grew up in Hamburg, never had a hamburger, was presented a hamburger, and what happened when they told you it was a hamburger?
Man. So that was 1983. So that's 30-some years ago. I don't remember exactly my reaction. I'm sure I was surprised, like the food could be called, you know, where I'm from, but I don't remember.
So boys and girls, young men and young women out there, there's a gentleman here speaking that what we take for probably granted. Probably everybody here has ever been to McDonald's. You've been to Culver's, you've been to Wendy's, you've been to Burger King, you've been someplace. Yet by 16 years old was the first time he had ever presented a hamburger. He said very well. If you don't recall, he said, no, we grew up kind of the same. We were in West Germany versus East Germany, and back then there was quite a difference. He talked about the line, and some of you guys will be learning in world history that line and how crucial it was and the power of different things. But then he said this. He said he met some Americans. He met, I wrote him down, Dan, a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and Greg, a second lieutenant in the Army, who eventually became his brother-in-law. All right. So what was it like to meet Americans? It sounded like it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was growing up, I mean, I was familiar with the fact that there was still a lot of American forces in Germany, and I thought that was cool. I mean, America, if you're not from America, people look at America usually in awe, because it's such a vast country, so powerful, and the land of opportunity, as they say. And to meet somebody from America was very special. My little sister growing up she loved Elvis. And she always, she always talked about she's going to move to America and stuff like that. And so, well, actually, my oldest sister got married and moved to America first, which made my younger sister jealous, I think. And she followed suit shortly thereafter. But yeah, it was a pretty big deal. It was cool. I mean, it was cool to meet different people from a different culture. I mean, I'd been to several different countries before, but never met anybody from America. So it was definitely a blessing, and it was fun. I loved it. They were very, I don't know, well-spirited and joyful, and had a great attitude, and were very positive. I know a lot of people that are kind of negative. So those two guys were pretty positive guys.
So Holger, let's take a little bit of time with that. You said that a lot of people look at America and they look at it with awe. I'm sure there's at least one of you guys that are listening to this that are just, hey, this is just the country I grew up in. Yeah, we have all these things. So what do you mean by seeing it in awe? What was so different, or what was surrounded by the word America or the United States? What when you were younger, what did you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know. America's always like, I guess, if you want to say one word, is big. I mean, in Germany, everything's small. We have small cars, small roads, and small houses, and everybody says America, everything's big. And it's certainly true when I came here. But I think just the fact that America was the world power. They obviously won the World War II against Nazi Germany, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, I couldn't have imagined, the Nazis having won the war, and then growing up in a Nazi regime. That would have been cool. And so I was always grateful for what America has done, and certainly felt that appreciation, for these young men that were serving here, still serving in my country to protect us. At that point, from what we felt was a threat from the Soviet Union and communism, and serving. Many have sacrificed with their life, so that was certainly a big deal for us.
So let's go back to that whole military thing. It was in awe. Is just Germany, when you were growing up, does Germany have a lot of satellites or a lot of places where they send their troops to America, or they send their troops to Australia, and they have outposts like that? Does Germany do that?
More so now, I think. But when I was growing up, I don't think there was much of that going on. I know there was probably some German personnel in the United States just for training purposes, but there was not much policing the world as America's doing all over the place. I don't think Germany was doing much of that.
So you said then you went and served into the military. Was that inspired by the two lieutenants that you knew? And then you made a decision to go into college. You made a decision to go into the Air Force?
No, that was not. No, that wasn't. It's in Germany at that point. They had mandatory service, and when I was drafted, the mandatory time was 15 months, and you had it was just for men, so women did not have to serve, because the society, or that was part of the culture, German culture, that we feel that the women do their contribution to society by bearing and raising children, and so there's no requirement of public service for the women. Men are expected to be in the military, or back then at least for 15 months, and people that could not in their conscience make up the idea to shoot somebody and kill somebody. They had the option to go in a public service in a hospital or something like that, but every man had to serve in some way, shape, or form. I decided to extend my time from 15 months to 24 months before that increased my pay by about 10 times. And from instead of 150 marks a month, you get about 1,500 marks a month, which is about that time probably about $500, something like that, a month.
So is that requirement still in Germany that every individual has to serve in either in a peacetime service whether it's peacetime or not, you're serving in the military, or something that would help the military if they ever went to war? Is that true still now in Germany?
Yeah, I think it's now 12 months, so they lowered the time a little bit, but I think it's still in place.
Wow. Just think, guys and gals out there, they don't get a choice in Germany to go into the military. There's some pluses in that. I've known so many people, and if you've watched our series, we've interviewed so many people from the military. We're about to talk about Mr. Spiewak's success that he's had, and some of that comes from the discipline he's learned in the military. So that's not a bad thing, all right? And that's the thing that we've heard from so many different people, from fighter pilots to snipers to individuals that have just had that background. So Mr. Spiewak didn't have a choice in that. Well, you get a choice. That's one of the blessings of being in this country, is sometimes we get a choice to do things, and sometimes the hardest choice is sometimes the best choice. All right, Mr. Spiewak has learned some from that. He talked about his income increasing and going down, but he also talked about the inspiration that he's seen in other military individuals, whether it be Lieutenant Dan. That's funny to say that right now, Lieutenant Dan, or Lieutenant Greg, and he learned that whole thinking. So let's move along a little bit. All right, so an exchange program, that's right. That's how you started to make the idea that you could move over here to the United States with an exchange program in the university?
Well, when I got into the exchange program, I was not planning to stay here. The original, I got a degree, master's degree in teaching. I was going to become a teacher, and I knew that I'd several. So that was 1986. I came to America for the first time, and then I graduated in 1993. So I think I'd gone every year. So I think I've been to the States about 5 times. And my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, was in the Army. He was stationed in many different locations in the States. I remember the first time I came over here, they were at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indianapolis. And so I visited them there. And then the next year, I think they were stationed in Washington. So he was at the Pentagon for a couple of years. So I went to Washington a couple of years in a row. Visited him there. I took my friend with me the second time. We traveled down to Florida for a couple of weeks. Then his assignment was he went from Washington to the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. So him and I actually drove their cars all the way across the states. That was a long trip, but I saw a lot of the states, and so in that time, I decided that developing a love for this country, and I thought it'd be cool to come back, And when I graduated, I said, I'm not going to get a job and then take a year off my job and come to the States, So if I ever want to go for a long time, I have to do it right now. And so the original plan was to go to Purdue for 2 years, get a master's degree in applied mathematics as a good add-on to my teaching math, and then I was going to come back to Germany after 2 years. But it ended up differently. I stayed at Purdue for 2 more years, got my MBA at Purdue, and then I got a job in Holland, Michigan as an engineer, and next thing, walk a mile, see a mile, and so.
So would you say a lot of your story of coming to America, and really a lot with your life, was, hey, I'm going to do this, and I wonder what I'm going to see at the other end? Even though you had a game plan coming into that, boys and girls out there, young men, young women out there, sometimes you can't see as far, and sometimes plans change. As Mr. Spiewak was saying, he only planned to come here for 2 years. Next thing you knew, hey, I could probably stay here for another 2 years. And in that 2 years, that 4 years of time, he traveled to Monterey, California, to Washington, D.C. What a better place to see what the heritage of America is than to go to Washington, D.C. And what he said, he started to see how big the country was. He started to see all the blessings that he had, or he was about to be offered the blessings. And some of us and some of the people around you just go, eh. For the heritage of the United States. This man knows what's going on in the United States better than so many people I know, better than the majority of people, because he respects it, because he sees it from another side. Sometimes when you go to a different country, you see that country differently. Did you hear him say? I traveled a whole bunch of different countries. A lot of people in Europe, they travel a lot. They get to go a lot of different places. But he also said there was some place across that Atlantic Ocean that meant something more. And that's why he's here. So let me ask you that. I remember being in high school. I had the opportunity to be a foreign exchange student, and I was in the end of the last. I was a semifinalist for this to go to East Germany, which is really crazy that you and I may have met each other years ago. But it all changed. What's that?
What year was that?
It would have been 1988.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I would have went there, and I would have spent time in the parliament, and I was going to be with one of the parliaments. It was a long time ago. But my big fear my big fear was the language barrier. Even though I was in the semifinals, I was wondering. I don't speak any German. All right, I barely speak English, as you guys have probably figured that out. But so there was such a fear. Was there a fear for you, Holger, to come over to America and not speak, or maybe you did speak fluent English?
Well, I don't know if it was fluent, but I in Germany, at least when I was going through high school, in 5th grade, you had to mandatory start English every, you took, I think, 3 or 4 hours of English every week. And so then that went on through the way through 13th grade. So I didn't get a whole lot of practice, because I was like 30, 40 other students in the class. I did go to England when I was 12 years old for 4 weeks with a host family, so I learned some English there. And then obviously, being around our American military friends, that certainly helped develop my English. So my English was decent. I wasn't perfect by far, but I could definitely get around. But I do remember the first time I came to the States in 1986. I didn't know how to speak English, but I remember walking up to McDonald's and like I didn't know what to say. I was standing like dumbfounded, like, how do I order a hamburger?
Guys and gals out there, this is what happened. Someone happened to say, "Where are you from?" He said, "Hamburg." And they said, "Okay, we've got one of these. Do you want number 1, number 2, or number 3? All right, so I'm just kidding there. All right, but Holger said something that I've never known about him. Holger, you were a foreign exchange student in England when you were young?
Yeah, well, for 4 weeks.
That's huge. So you went and left your house and went to England for 4 weeks with the host family?
Yep.
That is awesome, because I did that when I was in high school too. I'm telling you what, this is something that changed me. And Holger, obviously, it helped him too. Man, there's so many opportunities that you can go as an exchange student all over. My mom did it when she was younger. She went to Sweden. I've met so many people that have been able to travel. My youngest brother went to Russia when he was younger. All right, my sister went to Jamaica. All right, there's just so many different things that have happened in those experiences. They're very fearful. All right, sort of. It's fearful. And then I remember when I went to Australia. All right, I was going to be there for a whole summer, 3 months, and I was so excited that after the first week, I'm like, why didn't I stay here for years? It would have been so great. All right. But it was just going sometimes, and we're going to get to that point right there. All right. Sometimes the fear of doing something out of the ordinary. So what was it like, Holger, to go? So you've spent all your life here in Germany. Now you're going to uproot and you're going to move to United States. What was that like? What was those initial and maybe even finality of doing that? What was that like?
It was exciting. I mean, I obviously there was some anxiety, maybe a little bit, because I mean, I would be in a different country. Although my sisters already both lived in the States, but I mean, I was going to be in Indiana. My sisters lived in Texas and in Georgia at that time, so they were going to be far away. So there was some anxiety. I mean, I'd been to university 5 years in Germany. So I mean, I'd lived for myself. But I think it was more excitement because I mean, I just thought America was cool. I thought coming over here was a great experience, and I definitely look forward to it. And yeah, I mean, the language was a little of a challenge, but I with practice it would make a big difference. I know that those 4 weeks I spent in England really made a big difference in my English. And I was like, man, the 4 weeks make a big difference. Being there for 2 years is going to make it really great. So, but I want to say I do agree with you, Aaron. I mean, whatever for those listeners here, if you have an opportunity to go to a different country during your high school time or whatever, whenever you have that chance, definitely go. Because it just increases your perspective on things. It's not that it's bad to what you see here, but America is very blessed. Americans are very blessed. There's a lot of things that Americans take for granted, and when you go to a different country, you all of a sudden realize, wow, they don't have this, they don't have this. Like, man, I guess we have it pretty good at home. So
if you're just coming into this interview, who we're interviewing right now is Mr. Holger Spiewak. This gentleman has a story. A lot of times you'll see on a movie, if you're young, you'll see a movie of somebody coming in from a different country and seeing America. Well, this is real. what we want to do in this Edge interview series is bring individuals directly to you and down at the bottom of your screen. Okay, this is live, all right? I'm live, all right? This is live, all right? So you can go down there and type any question, all right? I've already copied down a few questions. Hi to everybody out there. So make sure that you typed in some questions for Mr. Spiewak, because we got a unique situation right now. Someone that's seen America move as a foreign exchange student to go to university here, go to college here, as we say in America, go to college, all right, and decided to stay. And we're talking about those reasons. We're going to take a little break right here. As long as technology works with us, all right, we're going to take a little break. We're going to do our interview, because our whole goal of this Edge interview series is to open your eyes to what's called the Edge series through the Life Corporation, living intentionally for excellence. And we want to grab a hold. If Holger and I could go back and talk to ourselves when we were 11, 12, 13 years old, and maybe before that, we'd say, hey, put us someplace where we can learn on a constant basis so that we can achieve greater things. And that's what we're doing right here. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to bust out of Aron talking, and we're going to go right into an interview. So here, or right into a commercial, sorry. So here's our commercial, the Edge interview series.
What if?
So you said at 10 years old, you already knew that it would be Notre Dame. What's so cool about Notre Dame? When did you want to be a fighter pilot? So what is a leader? What are some of the categories that I can become an entrepreneur in?
You could.
So were you always this intense and serious about everything in life? For our young listeners out there, tell us what MMA is.
Find something that you're passionate about and dig into it.
Hand your children.
That's my whole mission in life, is to inspire others to become their very best.
How do you set it up so that you're not bullied? Is there a way to prevent bullying from even being initiated?
No matter what it is, when you pour your heart into something that's positive, then it's hard to let negative influences affect you.
The Edge on life.
It's hunger. You have to want it more than anything else in this world.
And what I want a lot of the people here, watching this to know is that at any time, that one decision can change everything. Even if you don't know what it's going to entail or what the outcome is, like deep down in your gut, if you know that you're not doing what you're meant to do, you can change it and everything's going to be okay.
That you didn't have.
I believe that when you have someone who has results, who believes in you, it can carry you a long, long way.
You did your very best to be able to achieve your dream. You made the dream happen, and then it was taken away from you. How do you deal with that afterwards? And the way I dealt with it was in the knowing that I gave my very best every single day. Nobody out there can take that part away from you.
The Edge interview series.
Have you ever been scared? So have you ever broke the sound barrier? What's that like? You had the gang, you had the guys, you had the group, the camaraderie, but what is the importance of a coach, a mentor through that process? But at what age did you start into this process? At what age did you say, I'm gonna go out and grab a puppy and put a sled behind it and go?
Shake it off and, PDCA, plan, do, check, and adjust.
What does it feel like to represent the United States in the Olympics?
Just leaning on God to get me through it.
But what you have to do is take control of your mind, your body, and your spirit.
A person of character learns to do right.
Don't fear failure.
Always look at the positive side.
And I think that's one of the things that young people at times don't get, whether you're kids, whether you're teenagers, or even young adults, is that your life is a series of decisions.
So go out there and lead the way. Be kids who are going to make a difference in this broken world, and show them hope. Show them confidence. Show them faith in Christ. Show them what it looks like to lead and to lead well.
All right, gang. So you got a chance to see a little bit of our interview. Yes, we know that we have some technology issues. Yes, we know, understand that stuff. But that's the coolest part, man. That is what makes it real. All right, that's the coolest part. That it's not about the coolness. It's about, oh, I guess it is about coolness because I'm doing the interview, so it is about coolness, I guess, a little bit. But now we bring in Mr. Spiewak, so I guess it is a little bit about coolness because of who we get to interview. That is the coolest part. And as you can see right on the screen right now, go on to our kidsleadingtoday.edge. All right, part of this interview, we'll have different segments that will come out of this interview. All right, and go up on that on our YouTube channel. And also, it'll tell you when our next interview, which at the end of this, I'm going to tell you who we're going to interview, and this is going to be cool coming up on our next one. But we have Mr. Spiewak. All right, Mr. Spiewak has been a friend of mine for a lot of years right now. He's helped our family so much in his experiences, his understanding, the way he leads people. And now we get to see him lead people in so many different ways. Now, I sent this to him, and hopefully it wasn't too vague, but Mr. Spiewak came out of Germany, and he came into the United States. And there's two different cultures there, and you're going to hear this word a lot, culture. Culture is kind of what surrounds you, all right? And I'm going to ask Mr. Spiewak to explain that a little bit, and then I'm going to ask him, is the cultures different from Germany to the United States? So, Holger, did you get all that?
So explain what culture is and also culture Germany and different states.
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah, culture is probably, I'd say, the set of values that you grew up with, that people around you have. You know, what is important to them. You know, your family. There's a culture in your family. There's a culture probably in your state. You know, there's a culture in your country. Maybe you're part of a team, a sports team, or something like that. There's a culture there. And it's really, it's a set of values. What's important to these people that that's grouping together. And so that's what culture is. Every organization has a culture. You know, I think where two or more people come together, there's a culture developed between those two individuals, how they interact and what priorities they have and what's important to them. Is the culture different in Germany than here? Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's I don't know. I mean, anything from food, you know, like beer. In Germany, beer is considered a food. You know, that's here. You got to be 21 years old to drink beer, and it's a really, really big deal when you turn 21. I mean, I remember when I was in college. You know, like we had these young guys turn 21, and the big thing was to take them out to the bars and drink a bunch of alcohol. You know, they all get drunk, and it was this big deal to have alcohol. And in Germany, it's very different. You know, the legal drinking age is, I think, 18 years old. I think you can drink beer legally at 16, but it's not a big deal. I mean, when my dad gave me beer when I was 10 years old, I drank it. I spit it out. It didn't taste good at all. You know, I just didn't drink any beer. You know, when you go to places, there's nobody cards anything. You know, so it's really, I think in Germany it's not a big deal as opposed to here. It's really a big deal. That's culture. You know, it's different. What else? I mean, soccer. You know, sports. Obviously, in America, you have a culture of football, American football, and baseball and basketball. Those are big things. I mean, soccer's getting a little bigger here. I mean, in Germany, it's soccer. You know, yeah, we have some people play basketball, football, whatever, but it's like. Yeah, you ask people like, I mean, it's fine. No offense, but Americans, you know, that one of the things that are called culture is that you think that you're the best in the world and everything that Americans know that everybody else knows. Well, you know, you take like a LeBron James. You know, in America, obviously everybody knows LeBron. Well, go to Germany, there's hardly anybody knows LeBron James. You know, it's just that's culture, right? I mean, culture is here. It's all about these sports and soccer is more of an international sport, I think, which is known everywhere. I mean, you ask anybody in most countries who Pele is, and everybody else, almost everybody know who Pele is, right? You guys will not know that probably because he's a very famous soccer. The most famous soccer player of all times is Pele. He's from Brazil. I grew up in Germany, and we played soccer all the time. We played soccer on our breaks. You know, we played soccer with cans. We played soccer with tennis balls. We played soccer whatever we could do. Culture is very different than here. I mean, now there's a lot of things that are similar. But there's also things that are very different. You know, I think Americans are very, and I said that already, they are very, and I won't offend anybody, but it's spoiled maybe. It's like my friend Chris Brady always says, a fish does not appreciate the water unless he gets thrown out of the water. So what that means is that if you have water around, if you have fish, you have water around that provides oxygen for you, you don't think about it, right? If you have air and enough air, you don't think about needing air. But all of a sudden, imagine you're in a room and there's only so much air available, it's going to run out. All of a sudden, you start thinking about air, right? And Americans, I think they have so much in abundance. You know, everybody has a car here. Everybody has a TV. You know, everybody has food here. You know, that seems normal. But what people don't realize here is that most people don't have a car in the world. If you look at the whole world, most people don't have a car. If you look at the whole world, most people don't have a TV. You know, and so many things that Americans take for granted. And I mean, not Germans that don't, but it's certainly prevalent here in this culture. You know, and that things are taken for granted that are not normal. I heard that in America, somebody that is on welfare in America is in the top 10% richest people in the world.
So culture, you know, as Mr. Spiewak as Holger is going through all this, you start to understand that there's different thoughts and different, as he said it so well, culture is a set of values. I love that. Because, and then he said, culture can happen just between two people. A lot of people go, well, it takes a whole group to have a culture. No. It's a relationship, all right? A relationship. Your mom and dad have a relationship, all right? They have a culture that's about them, okay? They have, as you get inside of that relationship, you start to feel that culture, all right? Mr. Spiewak grew up in Germany. All right, you talked about the difference in some of the things that we take when it comes to alcohol, the perspective we have it, they have it, the perspective of pro sports and the players in pro sports, all right? He's so true when it comes to Pele or some of the different things about soccer. I did not grow up with soccer at all. All right, I knew what a soccer ball was, but I did not grow up with it. But if you'd asked who the 49ers were and who played in the Super Bowl back in 1986 or something like that, I would have known that because that was forefront of my brain. It was a different culture and it was a different way. Not surprising that we have shows like American Idol. Sometimes we take and set those people up there, all right? And I'm sure Germany has some of those shows too. But that's not the point. But the point is this. Holger said all those differences in culture, but he ended up staying here, and that's the thing that we want to bring out. He ended up staying. So he had 2 years at Purdue, decided to stay for another 2 years, and then what happened? That the culture started getting into his veins, and now it's been a few years more than that. What was the decision, or was it a certain decision that you decided, nope, I'm going to stay here?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. I tell people all the time, because I've been here now, so I came over in 1993. I visited the first time in 86, but then to go to Purdue, I was in 1993, so I've been here now for 24 years. And I never really made a conscious decision, now I'm going to stay here. It was literally always walk a mile, see a mile. I stayed for 2 years, got my first degree. Then I stayed for 2 more, well, I get another degree. And then I got a job. Well, you know, maybe I'll have a job, I'll stay here for a little, I had to get a visa in the meantime, you know, so eventually I got a green card through my first employer and my last employer. But it was never a decision, you know, that I consciously made, okay, now I'm going to stay here. But I did realize the opportunities here, you know, like I told you earlier, is America is called the land of opportunity. And people that are coming to America from a different country, they see those opportunities. You know, there's a reason. I've heard a statistic that people that come to America from a different country have a 4 times higher probability to become millionaires in America than Americans. Well, that doesn't mean that these people are smarter or they work hard or anything like that. It's just they see opportunities where everybody else sees maybe problems or challenges, right? Like Americans, you know, you guys probably remember a couple of years ago where the gas prices were $4 a gallon, right? And everybody, oh man, $4 a gallon, that's crazy. You know, everyone's freaking out. Well, in Germany, gas is about $7 to $8 a gallon. And as you said, everybody else in the world, gas is way more expensive than here, right? So in Germany, I had a very small car. I had a little Fiat Uno with a 1.5 liter engine, 75 horsepower, right? When I came to the States, one of my first goals was to get a big old American car that needs a lot of gas. And so I got a 1978 Lincoln Continental Mark V that had a 460 engine, and it got about 6 miles to the gallon.
That's awesome. So you said your car in Germany was a Fiat Uno?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
So Uno, that's Spanish for one, and Fiat is French for fake. So does that mean it was a fake one? I love this. Guys, what he's telling you, that the opportunity, it was so big that he just said $8 a gallon. When people come over here in America, and sometimes we don't see that. We just turn on the TV. We use our smartphones. We get on Facebook. We get on some game that's sitting on our iPad or on our iPod or whatever those eyes are, and we stop looking around. Where Mr. Spiewak was looking over here to the United States, and then when he showed up, he's like, holy cow, this is really the land of opportunity. And that word's probably, or that term's been overused. But really, he said, this is opportunity. If I go back, I love my country. I've loved every aspect about it, but it was $8 a gallon, and now it's $4. Oh, look at there it is. Was it red? That was green. It was a green one. That was a cool. We have to make sure, everybody out there, if you ever meet Mr. Spiewak, say one day we're going to buy you a Fiat Uno. That would be awesome. All right, anyways, so back in my whole point is sometimes we disappear. We said, and there's so many quotes. I'm going to use this. Walk a mile, see a mile. Every time we do these interviews, we get one quote from the person that we are interviewing that will carry us on for years and years and years. And this is the quote, walk a mile, see a mile. But then he said a second one. Remember what he said about the fish? He said the fish is the last one to realize that he's in water. Even though the water produces the oxygen and all the different things that he needs required, he doesn't know it till someone throws him out on the side of the bank, on the riverbank, and then he's like, man, I need to get back in the water. And sometimes we don't. So what we're doing here with these interviews, and remember, hey, listen, right, start typing in questions. All right, down there at the chat, down at the Q&A, because I got a machine gun him here in a second. All right, I got one more big question, and then we're going to start machine gunning. It's amazing how fast these interviews go. All right, but Mr. Spiewak said the fish doesn't realize that he needs water until he's out of it. And sometimes we don't realize the opportunity we have until we're outside of the country, all right, and come back in. So switching gears a little bit, Mr. Spiewak has talked about going to college, and now he's married. He has an international business. He's very successful. He's a business owner of a large degree, all right. How has, well, let's just ask this in a couple different ways. Has your faith changed from Germany to the United States, and how has that affected your change, or how has that affected your life?
Has my faith changed? Yes, I have faith now. So when I came here from Germany, I did not have faith. I did not believe in God. I was a total atheist, and Germany is spiritually a very dark country. There's a lot of beautiful churches, but most of them are empty, or there's very few people going there. It's very sad because it's the land of the Reformation. And I grew up not believing God. My family would go to church once a year for Christmas, not because we believed in God, but that was the right thing to do. And yeah, so I came over here and through my mentors, Owen Woolbert and Chris Brady, they started, talking about God, and I was kind of put off by that in the beginning, associating with them. But eventually I realized, that's probably a part of my life that I'm missing. And I started reading the Bible, and eventually on actually Easter Sunday, 2001, accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and my life has changed ever since. So my faith has grown a lot since then, and it's that's probably the big. I look back at my life now, all the time in Germany I had, and I know that even though I didn't believe in God back then, God already had a plan for my life. He had a purpose for me, and I'm trying the best I can to fulfill that purpose now.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes you can see lots of churches, and sometimes there's nobody that fills them. That's happening in America right now. So if you ever get the opportunity, I'm not trying to push you or anything, but someone says, hey, why don't you come to church with me? All right. Number one, ask your parents about it. Ask somebody you trust. Ask somebody out there, hey, such and such asked me to go to church. But then maybe it's God. And Mr. Spiewak just said so well, He said, but God had a plan, even though that I wasn't believing in him. He believed in me. And what we're telling you right now, whether you believe in him or not, God does not require you to believe in him for him to love you and believe in you. All right? And that's the coolest part. We got an amazing Father. All right? And that's when it comes to Aron Radosa and when it comes to Holger Spiewak, we know that our success, the ability to even be here, is granted to us from our Heavenly Father. And that's what's so great about it. We work hard. He doesn't expect us to sit back. We work hard. All right, but we're having fun right now. All I'm doing is sweating and having fun right about now. But that's the great thing about it. So now we get to machine gun. So if you guys can do some questions, that would be great. All right, I have a couple cool questions that have come in. All right, one said, all right, Holger, you were in the Air Force, right? You're in the German Air Force. Is that correct?
Yep.
So what plane did you fly?
I didn't fly a plane. Actually, I was in a ground unit. We actually had anti-aircraft rockets. We were with the Hawk missile, anti-aircraft missile unit. Well, it was part of the Air Force in Germany. So I never was in a plane, actually.
So another question that needs to be back. Did you ever shoot the missile?
I never pushed the button, no.
Oh.
In fact, I never got saw because the only way they would only go down to Greece once a year, and I never was taken. So the 2 years I was there, they never took me, so I never actually saw the missile being fired. So it was kind of boring. But oh
well. So where did you serve? Just right in Germany?
Yep. I was in northern Germany, Bremerhaven, about 45 minutes from my parents.
Excellent. Now, one of the questions that came up is maybe a difficult question for all of us to understand, but it was very powerful. All right, and I think we could spend a lot of time. I could do a whole different interview with Mr. Spiewak on this. And a gentleman asked, were you taught differently about World War II than we were taught in America?
Probably. I mean, I didn't go through the schooling here, but I'm sure it was different. I think, and that's probably part of the culture because, I mean, that when obviously you guys all know that there was a lot of bad things that happened during World War II, with the persecution of the Jews, and 6 million Jews got killed, during Nazi power in Germany. That was a very dark subject in German history. And because of that, I think there's all part of, the historians trying to deal with that, Germany was pictured as almost as a bad country, which there was some bad people there, but I think most people did not really understand what was going on. And I'm proud to be German, but I think some of the stuff that was taught almost wanted people to not be proud to be a German. Americans are very proud to be Americans, I think, and that's great. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud of being a German. I'm very proud of being a German. And that was growing up because of World War II, something that was more discouraged, the pride in your country, and I think that's sad. I don't think that's right. But so World War II, obviously we were at the other end. We lost the war, but I'm glad that we lost. So.
Holger, you said you were glad that you lost, and that's a difficult task for a lot of young men and young women today, to understand that there's sometimes that losing can be the best thing that can happen. And there's so much that's there, and we're not going to touch on a lot on that, but guys and gals, sometimes when you lose, you gain so much. And for sure, the country of Germany gained so much in that loss. They gained so much. They gave them amazing friendship in America, even though we were at odds. But here's the thing. Also, Mr. Spiewak said, I'm proud to be German because it wasn't the German people. Sure, there was German people that were in the government and so forth, all right? We have individuals that we hear about here in America. If you're anything around any type of news, all right, I don't spend a lot of time watching news. I can't even tell you how many years, if not decades, it's been since I sat down and watched the news, because it just has never grown anything positive in me. All right, I'm not saying not understand what's going on. No. You don't want to be in the dark, because we need to help people, and sometimes helping people, you need to know what's going on. But if it's not pumping positive into you, it's time to shut it down and find something positive. And a lot of times news looks at the negative of World War II. This is Germany. They take what was called a government, which was a Nazi Germany, and they say it's Germany. It wasn't. All right. And we get a chance to experience that right now with North Korea. Not everybody in North Korea is a bad people. All right. But North Korean and the government and who's at the head is making some loud noises all around the world because, and it's not North Koreans. It has nothing to do with that. It's God makes people. All right. God makes people. All right. And a lot of times some cultures choose to do the wrong things. Some cultures choose to do the crazy things that are out there. All right. Oh, here's another question coming in. I want to try and get this up before. It says, since you believe Americans are spoiled, take things for granted, do your kids prefer to, oh man, this is great. So your kids, oh man, this is a perfect question. Now you have, so your wife, Miss Lindsay, is from America and you're from Germany. All right, now your kids, you're teaching 7 kids. How does the attitude of maybe being a little bit of the spoiled America and coming from Germany, how have you meshed those to create the culture of the Spiewaks now?
Well, I mean, you know, that's definitely an uphill battle because, you know, my kids spend a lot of time with other people, you know, in school and with friends. And, you know, I mean, they watch some shows here. I mean, we don't have TV, but they watch, you know, videos and Netflix sometimes, you know, and, yeah, again, I hope I didn't come across earlier as condescending. When I say Americans were spoiled, I didn't mean like, no, you guys are spoiled. That was not my point. You know, again, the point, the whole idea with the fish story was that it's not your fault. It's just the culture that you grew up in is you know, makes you a certain, you know, it definitely influences you in a certain way. You know, we're just in church today that the pastor talked about, I think it was in Romans, you know, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, you know, so we don't have to participate in the culture, you know, like when we make our values, when we think about our life, you know, it's very important to kind of figure out what your values are, what's important to you. Like my values, you know, to me, my first priority is God, you know, then my wife, then my children, you know, and then my friends and family. So God is first for me, and so that's part of my priorities. And I choose when I see something based on those priorities that doesn't fit into my priorities, that goes against my priorities. I make a choice to not participate in that. My children are growing up; they're young, you know, so they don't necessarily understand. I can't teach them about that. Most of them not about values and priorities yet, but they certainly get influenced. But then again, I'm trying obviously as good as I can to instill the values that I feel are important on them, and. You know, I think we don't have a perfect family, but we're trying our best. I've got an amazing wife that helps me with it. And ultimately, you know, it's not so much, you know, which country I'm part of. You know, I mean, I want my kids to know German. I teach them a little German here and there. And some of the German traditions, you know, we have Christmas and we have Christmas lights, you know, actually candles on a wreath sometimes, you know, actual candles. Well, yeah, I mean, you just got to do the best you can with what you have, you know. So, I mean, they're not going to be raised total Germans because that's just impossible. They do grow up here in an American society with the totally German values. Not that I want that, you know, but it would be a failing task anyways, I think.
So what you guys have just heard is sometimes when your parents talk to you and they talk about their heritage, they talk about where they came from, or where your grandparents came from, or great-grandparents came from, or where your last name came from. There's so much value in understanding history. Understanding where you came from, but also Mr. Spiewak says here, he says sometimes you can make choices independent of that. All right, he made a choice to come over to America and stay in America, and if I recall, his parents are still in Germany right now. They moved over here for a short time, and then they moved back to Germany. Is that correct?
Yep.
And that didn't change Mr. Spiewak. That didn't change Holger's idea of what he thought of America. The cool part about it is we get him here and we get him on this interview series. And that's the cool part. I can call him friend and I can call him comrade. I can call him a partner and a brother in Christ. And that's what we get out of this. So I pray that you gained as much as I did from this interview series. I love this guy. I love that he had the opportunity that he could speak, because some of us will never get that opportunity to move to a different country and experience the culture, experience what it is. So that means get around people, and guess what they say? Like Mr. Spiewak said, if you ever have the opportunity when you're young, when you're in high school, to be a foreign exchange student and experience that, jump at it. All right, go for it. All right, it's what we get out of life. All right, We even have a company that we encourage you to look into called Living Intentionally for Excellence, all right? Because we want you to jump onto an Edge Series talk. Once a month, there's an audio that you can be downloaded or that you can purchase that takes these different segments, not the ones that we're doing, all right? You go onto our YouTube site, the ones that we encourage, because they have gentlemen like Mr. Spiewak on there. They have young ladies. They have young men, all right? They have couples on there that teach us principles so that we can move on. All right, it's been awesome, guys. All right, so go to your calendar, write down on your phone. I guess you can't write on your calendar and go to your phone. Maybe that's the way I should have said it. All right, but go and put down October 22nd. October 22nd is the next interview, okay? And we will be interviewing a gentleman that is into forest fires. There's a new movie coming out called Only the Brave. Maybe you guys have heard about it, about the people from Prescott, Arizona, the firefighters, and what happened to them. Well, one of my buddies did that for 20-some years. The gentleman's name is Mr. Brian Powers. We're going to have him on here. He's going to talk a little bit about that. He's going to talk about that great thing. So write it down, okay? Go to our YouTube channel, all right, because it'll say the date, the time, and it'll actually give you the idea of the Zoom. And invite. My aspect is, and my recommendation is to invite as many people. We want to see this thing so jam-packed with people so that there's so many questions, all right? And the last thing for Mr. Spiewak, hey, it was awesome. Really, from the deepest part of my heart, thank you so much for taking this time. Can we call upon you some other time that we may have another subject? Because you brought up a whole bunch. As you can see, I've got tons of notes. All right, I'm a copious note taker. All right, so that I can come back and someday in the future, is it okay if we ask you to be part of this again?
Sure, absolutely.
And we are also going to do a live one, so stay tuned. There's going to be a live one coming up here in the near future that we're going to have gentlemen like Mr. Spiewak and all the people that you can find on our YouTube channel coming to you live, all right? Not live like this. Go to someplace and see them, shake their hand, interview, say hi, say, hey, what makes you so tall? What makes you so German? All right, whatever you want to say to them, all right? And a blessing, all right? And remember, today is the day, as Mr. Spiewak says all the time, today is the day that you lead, no matter what age that you are. Today is the day that kids are leading, all right? And we're going to steal that from Mr. Spiewak. Today's the day, guys, that you lead. And we love you. God bless.